Life After Sunday, a podcast by dudes, for dudes, where faith meets the real world. For Eric Duval and Mike Norman, I'm Chris Boren. Let's go.
What is up, gentlemen? How are you
What's
guys?
up?
Good afternoon, my bros.
Let's go.
Man, this spring weather, man, got me fooled. Turned off cold today, but, man, I'm sure ready for the flowers, the blooms, the leaves, the sunshine, the green grass. I love it all.
Yes, man.
Mike's
Dude,
already been looking at it.
Oh, yeah. This weekend's going to be killer, man. But, how do you just not love spring? Like every day you walk outside, there's something new that has bloomed. You know, and have y'all noticed the Bradford pears? Like, they look like they're out of scene out of, like a movie. You'll see all this dead, and then there's a Bradford pear that's bright white, just popping life. You know, how, like, spring is a representation of life, you know, death, with the winter, and then like a new baby being born in the spring. Yes, I'm in touch with my sensitive side here. It's just, to me, I love all our trees, everything here, because we have so many trees. Everything is just dead. And when you first start seeing the blooms, like the daffodils are out, to me, all that color against death and all the the dormant trees, it's incredible. I love it. And I also love that severe weather's coming. I don't want anybody's house to be harmed, but I sure want to enjoy some good storms, man.
We going chasing this year, Mike?
And if y'all are available, man, I'm always ready.
As long as I can ride in the front passenger seat, because I'm afraid if we were chasing storms and with Mike Norman driving, I seeing car sickness if I'm sitting in the back. Chris, you're in the back seat, sir.
I want to be in the bed of the truck with the wind barometers up, video camera ready. I'm ready. Sign me up. Let's go.
Mike's got that thing out of Twister, that little device they had. Dorothy. That's what they called it, Dorothy.
Yeah.
By the way, the new Twister's coming out this summer, by the way.
And it's going to be so cheesy, but I'm still going to watch it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You don't have to worry about me getting too close to storms because I am driving my pickup, which I like. If I was in a rental car, I wouldn't care, which I've done. I was at a class in San Antonio driving a city vehicle, and we all went chasing some tornadoes around San Antonio in my government vehicle. And I just was like, yeah, if we run into a hailstorm, I'll be like, man, I guess we were just going to eat, man, and
Just
ran into a
going in.
hailstorm. It's weird.
That's outstanding.
But yeah.
Mike, you talking about spring being a sign of life. I didn't even think about we talked about this a little bit earlier, and it didn't even dawn on me. But you know what else is in spring? The resurrection, and that is a sign of life. The ultimate sacrifice. Jesus paid it all. Third day rose again, brand new life, so we can have new life. And it's awesome that you thought about spring, and it just all kind of ties together, and it's a beautiful thing for sure.
Hey. Well, Chris, this podcast just lasted a whole 3 minutes and 35 seconds. That's it. We're done. Is there anything else? I mean, really, Chris comes in and drops that bomb. How are we going to top that?
Well, we could top it with your new hobby that you've taken up. We can't top it, but
That's not saying that. Don't do that to me.
but I mean, what you do is pretty cool. I got to listen to your call. You want to tell us what you do, and we'll go into your last call.
Man,
your hobby.
Man, you dudes have known me forever. Anybody who knows me well knows that I absolutely love sports. It's my true passion. I know the game, football, baseball in particular, inside and out. I never was gifted enough or had the knees to play the sports, but I've absolutely loved them all my life. And so when me and Casey got married, I would tell her and share that stuff with her that's always something I've wanted to do. And she was like, well, do it. I'm like, how? She's like, well, just find a way, just do it. She goes, you can do it. I'm like, no, I can't. I'm 50. She's like, do it. So you know, by God's grace and blessings, I met somebody at church that works for the athletic program at Tech, and we just got to talking, and I shared with him how much I love baseball and how I love what he gets to do every day. And so he said, well, come on over and you can do some play-by-play for our YouTube live stream. They live stream all their games on YouTube, all their home games. And so I was like, okay, never had a lick of training, never done it before in my life. So I just went over there and put a headset on and did it. So I've been doing it for a couple of weeks now, and man, Tuesday night, I was like a little kid, dude. I mean, I felt like Rudy or somebody, you know, I just felt like this was it. This is what I was supposed to be doing. I'm terrible at it still.
Whatever.
But I'm having fun, man. Sitting in the booth at a college baseball game, getting to call the game I love. And man, it was one of them wild games. I think the final was 11-10. Tech won on a walk-off, and I got to call a walk-off home run to end a ball game. Man, first of all, Tech tied it in the bottom of the ninth. That was fun. I thought I was going to have a come apart then. But then in the bottom of the 10th, Tech walked it off with a home run, and I about lost my mind.
It was great, man.
That just shows me, I tell you right now, my dream job in this whole world, it would be for me to be the voice of the Razorback baseball team. I couldn't do it. I'd have a heart attack. I'd pass out. The first walk, it would not work. But yeah, I'm having a blast, fellas. I really am. I'm loving it. And Chris, my boy, even got to come join me as my partner over the weekend for a doubleheader.
I listened to that one a little bit too. Did you talk to him about not being so scared of the microphone?
That's not his fault, man. He didn't have a headset. He just had a microphone, and it wasn't his fault.
That's a good friend.
Hey.
You hear that, Chris? He had your back.
I hear it, and the volume was way down. But come back March 9th. The team is back again, and it will be better. I promise you.
Let's go.
All
We
right.
actually got
excited to
Eric.
be doing
We
this.
actually got Eric dialed in a little bit better after Tuesday night's game. He got his volume up even better, and he even sounds better now. So
The other night in the 10th or in the 9th, actually, I told myself, I was up there talking. I was by myself because in the booth, there was nobody else in there with me. I was in the room by myself, and I was talking to myself, getting ready to go in the 9th inning. I'm like, okay, there's a chance that, you know, Tech's down a run. Something could happen here. You've got to focus. I said, you've got to focus. Don't get excited. Don't lose your train of thought, because I tend to do that. There's a lot to keep up with in there. And so I was just trying my best but I could not help it. The love of the game and the passion for baseball, it just came through. And I lost my mind in the 10th when Tech won it. So,
Yeah, they beat Harding. That was an amazing
Harding's a great
call.
baseball team too. Yeah.
Does it not make you appreciate what the Hogs do? They do it so seamlessly and they sound so good. It's a lot of work, isn't it? Don't you have a bunch of papers out in front of you?
Yeah, I've got both teams' rosters. I've got the current roster lineups for both teams, you know, that are for that day. Then I've got score sheets for each team. Then I've got the broadcast pulled up on my Mac along with the live stats going on another tab, and then Tech's all-time stats on another tab. Man, and now it wouldn't have been so bad 5 years ago, but now they've got the 20-second pitch clock. And dude, 20 seconds is not a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, you're rocking it. That's tough, man. My ADD would kick in. I'd be like, "What out are we? That's 2 outs." And they're like, "No, that's 3, idiot." You know, like I just couldn't stay focused for 9 innings, man. So kudos to you to be able to do that.
Man, I'm having a blast. And kudos to my wife for letting me do it. I mean, that's taking time away from us, but she's letting me go and, you know, do this, you know, supporting me. I shouldn't say not letting me, but supporting me and loving me and letting me do it. And it's a blast, man.
That's awesome, man.
I'm excited for you, dude. It's amazing, and I love being in there with you. And we'll
Let's
be
go,
back again.
boy. The funky
No
meter.
midweek. The funky meter is on and strong. We going to get down to our main topic today, which is voting, why we should vote, our duty as citizens of this great land, our duty as Christians. It is just, it's our civil duty to vote. And if we don't vote, you might as well just have voted for the person you don't want in there, and you have no right to complain. And I talked to my pastor a little bit yesterday about this very subject, Brother Chad Duval. He preaches on this. He teaches on this all the time. And he recorded a short video for us, and we're going to play that right now.
Hey, guys, I know y'all are talking about the necessity of Christians getting out and voting tonight, and I want to throw my 2 cents worth in on that. You know, I know sometimes when it's a primary election or just a small local election, we feel like that, you know, well, my voice don't matter and what I have to say doesn't count. But that's absolutely a lie from the enemy and is untrue. I believe that the Constitution of the United States, although it is not a holy document, I believe it is a God-inspired document. And by the Holy Ghost, those men were able to pen a document that gives us the right to vote. And in voting, we're able to elect candidates that then support and back our worldview, which is a biblical worldview. And if we don't get out and vote, if we don't go out and vote our faith, vote what we believe, vote for candidates who will support a biblical worldview, then we end up right where we are. All over the place, right this minute, there are judges and governors and mayors and city council members who are making absolutely horrible choices and implementing horrible policies to the detriment of the family and to the detriment of our children and our own lives because we voted for them. Or we didn't vote and they were able to get elected because Christians didn't stand up and vote their faith. You know, there's a scripture in Romans chapter 1, verse 32. It says, who know the righteous requirements of God, that those who commit such things are worthy of death. They not only do them, but also give hearty approval to those who practice them. And I am absolutely convinced that when we vote for candidates who do not support a godly worldview, what we are doing is we are then giving our approval to those who support ungodliness. And it absolutely should not happen. We as Christians must, number one, get out and vote. Number two, we must vote for candidates, whether we like them personally or not, who will support a biblical worldview and will stand for righteousness in the name of Jesus Christ. So, guys, get out, vote. Vote, vote. I cannot reiterate that enough. If we don't vote, we have no way to complain for what's going on. You know, we also know Bonhoeffer said this: all it takes for evil to prevail is for good men to do nothing. And if we don't get out as good men and vote our biblical worldview, vote our faith, then evil will prevail. So, guys, get out there, vote.
One thing that Pastor Chad said at the beginning was that how important it is to get out and vote, no matter if it's just a small local primary or a major national election. They're equally as important. And guys, Mike, we'll start with you, man. Give us your thoughts on what he said and take us into this. Our main topic here.
Well, 2 points that he made that are really impressive that I completely agree with is a God-inspired document. You cannot read any research that you do will find God has inspired all of this and you'll hear the naysayers say, well, the very people who made this God-inspired document also had slaves. But I think that's where the beauty is. Not that there were slaves, obviously, but because they wrote a document that would ultimately set the government to allow them to be free. You can go anywhere on this earth, and I can promise you're not going to find a government creating a document that will go against something that they believe or that they like. For instance, in those days, having slaves and having people in their house as servants. Yet they signed off on the document that would ultimately lead to the destruction of slavery. That can only happen, in my opinion, if it's a God-inspired document. And any research will reveal that. And then the other thing I really like that he said, whether we like the candidates or not.
Yes.
And I think that goes into Trump. It's very obvious if you compare Trump and Biden, God inspired or not. A lot of people may not like Trump and the things he says, but you have to look past sometimes the garbage that comes out of his mouth and look at the policies. And the policies are very much in line. Like when he was in that debate and he called out Hillary Clinton for abortions, he said, "Do you know what they do to those babies?" He's the only political candidate to ever call out abortion for what it is. And when he said that, I just was like, the courage it took to do that was incredible. No other candidate has ever directly called out abortion like he did. So those are the two things that he said. Obviously, we need to get out and vote. And we can talk about this in a minute, but Pope County Republican Party apparently is that they're dead, because I tried to do some research being from out of town, just moving here. And man, I couldn't find nothing on anybody. I'm used to getting, like in Houston, the Republican Party. If you wanted it, you go to their website. Here's the candidates we endorse. Here's what they believe. And then I could go to the Democrat Party and look at theirs and make an informed decision. Man, I couldn't find anything on that. I hope that gets better.
Yeah, Mike, just before I chime in here, and Chris, I hope I didn't jump in front of you here, but that's aggravating to me. I just moved back in September of 22, so I've been back a little longer than you. But man, I've been in Faulkner County for years, and I've never had any trouble finding any information about all the candidates. The Faulkner County Republican Party would come out and give us guides, kind of, give us times and places we could go see the candidates speak. They would host the candidates. You never had any trouble finding information. Man, I couldn't find anything here. I mean, it's really, and there's no presence on social media, and in this world, how is that even possible? It's our duty as citizens, and I'll get into that, to educate ourselves. But I'm trying, and I can't find it.
It's not there.
It's not there. And so I feel like we're failing there. But talking about Chad's video, man, that's powerful stuff. And you can tell that it means a lot to him. And I feel that, because it means a lot to me. He said something about, not voting. If you don't vote, you're just endorsing what you don't want. And so, I've sat and wondered here lately, especially, if everyone did their part, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, I think anybody who watches this can tell where we stand, but I don't care. Whatever you think, if everybody voted, I just have a hard time believing we'd be in the mess we're in. I just feel like in my heart, I want to believe anyway, that there's way more people out there that feel pretty much like we do about things. They don't voice it. They don't say anything, and it's getting worse. And so, I just feel like, if not voting is just as bad as voting the other way, so to speak. So
I think that I mentioned this before on here, and I'll say it again, that to your point, Eric, Christians over time not doing their part, not doing their civil duty, and letting a little slip here, letting a little slip here, and a slip here, and this snowball that started out very small has begun to grow and grow and grow, and now it's a massive avalanche that I think partly Christians not voting and not doing their part and not standing up is partly to blame.
Absolutely, Chris. Absolutely.
There's no doubt about it, and it's because we're all comfortable. We're all comfortable in our life. Most of us are doing pretty well in life, and so there's nothing that's driving us to the polls. And we have to stay motivated, because I know a lot of people get discouraged about the political process, and you feel like both parties are corrupt. And while there's probably a lot of accuracy in that statement, like you said, Eric, when we were talking, we didn't even know that they stopped allowing prayer in Russellville, the Russellville City Council. Like, we didn't even know. Like, there should have been, as soon as that came up, the Republicans on council should have been able to notify the Republican Party of Polk County, and we get out, and get all the Russellville residents up to say, no, take a stand, no, because what it is, it's a slippery slope. So you remove, it's called incrementalism, you remove God one little tiny inch at a time. So Russellville's taken the first step, and where does this end? It's like, you start looking at porn. Well, at that point, you're not planning on getting divorced, but that's the slippery slope you're headed to, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing here, the incrementalism of removing that from the government, the city council. Then, down the road, where does Russellville end up? Does it become a liberal city? Does it become, doesn't represent any of the values of Polk County? Well, you're well on your way, because that's the first step.
Yeah. And who's to say, and I'm sure there were people opposed to this, and I'm sure there was some outcry, and we didn't see it, though. I follow all the local pages on social media. I didn't see it till, again, like you said, after it had happened. But it feels like to me, if we had an active and invested Polk County Republican Party, and I hate to be calling people out, but that would have been out on Facebook, on there, all over, and you'd have had a room full of people there when they tried to pull that mess, and that would not have happened.
Yes, they even prayed the town that I worked for, the city I worked for. Yeah. Prayer was a big part of the city council meeting. They would have preachers come up and talk a little bit in their however minutes they get to speak in front of council. So Arkansas being as conservative as it is now, I was actually pretty shocked that Russellville took that step.
Yeah, it blew my mind. Yeah. And that just goes to show you, as far as voting goes, and Chris, get your thoughts on this too, is I personally feel like your vote can have way more impact at the local level than it can even at the national level. I'm not saying that they're both very important, but I feel like you can have more of an impact locally when you invest in your community and stuff like we just talked about. You can keep that crap from happening,
If you, like you said, if you vote in your local elections, and it all starts locally, and if you can keep, we have a small town vibe in Russellville, Polk County area, a bunch of small towns. And if people go out and do their duty and vote and keep this conservative small town vibe, that's how you're going to keep it, is people getting out and voting. If people don't show up, it's going to slowly slip from our fingertips, and we're going to wake up in 30 years and we're going to have a casino, and we're going to be a liberal-run town. You know what I'm saying?
Well, another interesting point, when I moved here, I grew up here and I always heard of them, but I didn't know what a justice of the peace was. So whenever I did early voting, and I failed as a voter in that I didn't research every single candidate on there. I only voted for district judge, for president, and that was it. I didn't vote in any of the races that I knew nothing about the candidates, because I didn't want to cast a vote for something I knew nothing about. I'd done research on district judge, but I didn't know what a constable was. I'm a police officer, and I'm like, what are these constables? So I actually did some research today for those who've lived here their whole life and may not even know what they are. But a constable here is a literal volunteer police officer. And within their township, they have the same power as the count or as a deputy sheriff does. They have the same powers of arrest, but they're completely volunteer. And for a while, until they changed the law a few years ago, you didn't even have to have training. You could just be elected. Wow. And I'm like, it's noble in one aspect that they're volunteers and their job is to help out. And, it's old school. It's history kind of, but you have all of the risk and zero benefit. You're not getting paid. You don't have health insurance. You have nothing. They're just volunteers. And so it's a little different, but each township within Pope County has a constable, and they do have powers. So if you see one, don't blow their doors off on the freeway, especially if they're in their township, because they do have arrest powers. And the other thing was justice of the peace. In Houston area, it was the county judge. They ran all that. Then they had I guess they call it like a quorum court or something. Well, here it's the same thing. So the whole county, I guess each justice of the peace represents that township or that area, and they come together to form the quorum to basically they're over the governance of the rural Pope County area. I didn't know that, so I didn't vote in those, especially the constables. Did y'all know that about the constables here?
I had a decent idea. I didn't know they were completely volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild, dude. That's insane. Hey, kudos to the folks who do that.
Yeah, right.
I mean, good grief. Mikey, go ahead, Chris.
No, go ahead, man.
I was just going to say, dude, you said it right there on two fronts there. One, I feel really, really strongly that it's on us to be educated when we go vote, right? We want to be educated. We need to be, because that's our civic duty. It's our job to make, if this whole thing's going to work, we got to do it, right? So it's we the people, right? But we're trying. You tried. I've tried. Man, I had to actually go. If I start the district judges, I've had to physically go find them to try to get my questions answered. I wouldn't know a thing about them. The Supreme Court, folks who are running for the Supreme Court here in Arkansas, I've had to go beg people to give me some information, or I wouldn't know anything about them. It goes back to we're falling behind here locally in Pope County, and somebody's probably going to turn this back around on us. Say, well, all right, there, smart Alex, y'all do it. Y'all run the Pope County Republican Party or something.
I'm about to that point because I consider myself pretty internet savvy, and the lack of information has been absolutely shocking.
Yeah, I don't understand.
You actually met the Collins lady there, Eric. Can you tell us about that comment that she made that was kind of a little flag for us conservatives?
Well, okay. First, before I say anything about her, super nice lady, very respectful. And I told her right up front, kudos to you for running. I mean, whether I agree with everything she's going to say or not, it takes something. You got to put yourself out there if you're going to run for office of any kind, especially in today's world. It's going to get pretty ugly if you do. People are going to be mean, pretty ugly to you and mean to you. So I gave her credit for that, and I do give her credit for that. But, I asked her, and we were kind of rushed. There were some people waiting to talk to her. She was outside the voter center. Again, kudos to her for that, for being out in the public. And I asked her, I said, in today's setting and backdrop with everything that's going on nationally, I feel like I'm being forced to be like a one or two issue voter, and that's it. And I told her, I said, with that in mind, with things as bad as they are nationally, I need to know where you stand on things nationally. And I specifically said, illegal immigration and right to life. And she was a very well polished in her answers. She skirted around. She did say we need to enforce laws on the books and that she was pro-life. But Mike, there wasn't any real one thing that gave me a bad vibe, but it just didn't seem. I don't know how I'm trying to say this, because I'm not.
Didn't you say that she said she was a constitutional
conservative? Yes, that's one thing I was going to talk about. Constitutional conservative, and I really. What is that? And I wish I'd have had more chance to talk to her about that.
Would you ever respond to somebody asking about you and your values by responding constitutional conservative, or would you just say conservative?
Well, I mean, I know there's a such thing as a constitutionalist.
Sure.
And, like on the Supreme Court, and those guys, thank God for them. But I'm with you, Mike. I would absolutely just say I'm conservative. Mm-hmm. And I will say, too, just real quick, I want to give Deidre Luker a shout out, too. I was really impressed with her because, again, I'm having to do this on my own, not to keep beating a dead horse with the Republican Party, but they've not given us anything. So I messaged Ms. Luker on Facebook on her campaign account, and she replied back and cause I asked her, is there anywhere I can come meet you to hear you speak, or where I might could get a few questions answered? And I was very impressed with her answer. She said, come to my office. I'm nobody. I'm just a citizen. And she was going to make time for me at her law office to come see her. So I'm going to go do that very thing on Monday before Election Day and get some questions answered, see where she stands on some things. Because for me, those two things, illegal immigration, it's bleeding down into all aspects of our lives right now. It is. It absolutely is. And then the right to life. I want to know about those two things, because if you align with my values on those two things, we can figure out the rest of it.
Right.
Okay. We can figure out the rest of the stuff later. What we're going to zone businesses, or what, we're going to figure all that out later. But those two things are such, like I've told you, the red lights are flashing right now in my mind and my heart, that we got to get those things first. So.
Well, we've brought up abortion multiple times already. And I think, Mike, didn't you do some research and have some statistics on abortion, so we can let the listeners know how prevalent it is and why it is so important that we vote pro-life?
Well, I think in the conversations of today, it's obviously a hot topic. Nobody wants to really talk about it. And we all just kind of bleach what it is, like, I believe in abortion. I don't believe in abortion. You don't really understand truly what it is until you hear the numbers. This was the last, these numbers are the last one they had compiled. I don't remember which year it was. They said between 81,000 and 88,000 abortions took place each month from July through September of last year. And if you just stop for a second, and now we're going to remove the bleach, we're going to get into the dirty nastiness of this. So let's go with 88,000 abortions each month. If you just think about how much that changes the world. I mean, imagine if Abraham Lincoln hadn't been born. That's one life that changed the entire country. One life. 88,000. We're talking like those numbers are mind-boggling, and they should be mind-boggling to you, because they're that just really, we casually talk about this subject, and yet 88, think about the life and the lineage and all the ancestors and everything that just stopped right there with those 88,000. And then actually, and here's a good thing, is that 14 states have banned abortion. They said without those 14 states that have banned it, those numbers would be more like 120,000 abortions a month. I don't know if that don't make you sick to your stomach, then we probably don't need to be friends. Does that just blow y'all's mind? I mean, we always talk about it, but that's a month, people.
Man, I'm having trouble wrapping my head around that, man. That's like the population of North Little Rock or something, or Little Rock.
I was going to say, like the city I came from was 150,000.
Okay.
They're doing, without those states, that's almost per month. That whole city is wiped out. It's incredible. It's incredibly horrible, but I think I just forgot, or once you get those numbers in your face, it makes the word abortion have a lot more bite to it.
And Mike, it goes back to what we talked about in the very first episode. We quit talking about uncomfortable things. Nobody talks about it. And like you said, bleach. We just bleach it. We don't want to offend people. And God, no, I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I'm not trying to be mean to or ugly to anybody. I love all of you. Women, men, I love all of you. But that's just not right, man. And it's because no one stands up. We don't stand up again, if everybody voted, I don't think we would be in this mess we're in right now with abortion, with illegal immigration, with any of this stuff, with the stuff they're doing to our kids, the crap they're giving to our kids in schools. None of this would be a problem if we all stood up and stopped it.
We talk about abortion all the time, and like you almost become, I'm pro-life all the way, and we all are, and we say it and we talk about it, but like you said, Mike, you almost become numb to it because you just know that's what you are. And then, but when you hear those numbers in your face, it's like it reaffirms why we are pro-life, why. And I think that is perfect for our audience because no one hears those stats, and maybe somebody does take the time to look those up, but I didn't. And
me either.
It's just completely mind blowing. I want to read a scripture. It says Psalms 34:14 says, "Turn away from evil and do good. Search peace." But this last part is what I want to focus on. It says, "Work to maintain it." Work to maintain the peace. Work to do good. And we've gotten comfortable in a society as Christians, and Christian men in particular. Are we working to maintain the good and maintain the peace? Are we going out and voting? Are we doing our part? I don't know if we are or not,
Well, a positive note that I read in the paper today was that France is actually moving to restrict abortion. And France is very liberal in the fact that government is moving toward a more conservative approach to abortion. To me, is a really good sign of maybe the world is turning a little bit, because how Europe goes is typically what's coming to us. So they're typically very liberal, and it's only a matter of time that whatever they're doing there, like they censor speech. You can go to jail in multiple European countries for saying something bad about a political leader. And, here we are. This is coming here. You're starting to see it more and more, like on the January 6th stuff. I mean, have you ever seen people prosecuted with the ferocity that they have of the January 6th? The entire weight of the federal government has come after each, and they said they're not stopping. There's still people, they're still going through video. They're going to nail every single person that they can, because the weight of the federal government has decided we're going for this. And I heard a guy today on a radio show. He's a journalist, and he was at January 6th, and he was videotaping everything from a journalist perspective. Of course, he works for the Blaze, so the government viewed him as not a journalist. And he did cross a line of restriction, which is apparently a misdemeanor charge. And he is told to turn himself in at the Dallas federal court tomorrow. And they actually told him to come dressed in a T-shirt, shorts, and flip-flops because it makes it easier to process him into jail so that they can put the shackles around his legs. And, you see videos of like the SWAT team going in and getting like Trump's right-hand man comes in, and you're seeing this stuff. And then on the other hand, you're watching locally people who have committed serious physical harm, who committed robberies, are not being, they're not getting the same treatment. Where is the massive federal, prosecution of all these riots, where they burn businesses down? You're not seeing any of it. So going back to the point of, what comes in Europe is coming here. We're already seeing it. But on a positive note, France is moving more conservative in the abortion arena. So that's a positive note for sure.
Mike, and man, that's another show we need to talk about. The way the government is going after the January 6th folks, compared to these folks who burned down half our country, including like federal courthouses and assaulting police officers. And I mean, they were trying to breach the gates of the White House, and the government didn't go after any of those people at all. And then most of them did get charged, got the charges dropped. I mean, our vice president was paying for bail, but that's another show, another subject.
Back on track.
But it's why voting matters.
Exactly. That's what I was getting ready to say.
Why voting matters, man.
That's exactly right. It absolutely matters. But I have a question for you. And Chris, you too. How do you, as a Christian man, because, if we had more than 100 views on this, we would probably get in trouble for saying a lot of the stuff that we're saying tonight, and that's okay. But how do you, as a Christian man, share what you believe, what we're talking about right now, and still love somebody? What's the appropriate way to approach this with someone who absolutely disagrees with us, and is going to call us every ugly name in the book? And again, if we had a bigger reach, would probably try to get us canceled, that kind of stuff. How do you approach that? How do you handle that as a Christian man?
I've got some commentary on that. Go ahead, Chris. I got some on this.
So, first off, let's see what the word says. The words, we are called to share the good news. We are called to speak the truth. And that's our, what's the word? That's our duty. That's our, I'm lost for the word. Obedience. That's our obedience to Jesus, to the word, is to speak the truth. And this is kind of hard. I mean, what happens after that is on Jesus. So we're supposed to speak the truth. We're supposed to love. And just like when say if I went and prayed for somebody for a healing and they didn't get healed, I still did what I was called to do. Because Jesus said, pray for the sick and they shall be healed. Why they didn't get healed, I don't know. Did I not have enough faith? Did they not have enough faith? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. But I did what I was called to do. I'm called to share the gospel. Whether somebody gets saved or not, I'm just called to do it. And so when we do that, the word says that when we obey God's commandments, we show him that we love him. And in that, we're supposed to love people, and we don't have to love their sin, though. We don't have to love what we disagree with. I mean, we had a girl last night in our recovery class, smooth, walk out because she got offended because she said she was gay. We were talking about how it was wrong and all that. And she smooth walked out of the class and said, I'm done with this. Those people are so easily offended. They want to get offended. They're looking for ways to get offended. Will she come back? I don't know. I hope she does. And I'll give her some more truth. And hopefully that God accepts her like she is, but he doesn't want her to stay like she is. He wants to change her through his word. He wants to change people through his word. And he accepts everyone just as they are, but he loves them too much to keep them where they are. And some of the truth in the Bible about some of those harsh things about it, you say those and you're automatically a bigot and you're a hater and you're complete opposite of love per se. But Jesus said you will be persecuted for my name's sake, and we're supposed to keep pushing and speaking the truth and, loving people, not their sin. And I know it's easier said than done. It's a hard thing to do.
Well, I think hitting on your point, Chris, is you. I think the easiest way to do it is you obviously love them while speaking truth. You speak the truth, you love them, and your hope as a human being, God's going to take care of on his end. But as a human being, let's say on abortion, these people grow up sometimes. Their heart changes in time. And you hope that respectful, truthful, and loving conversation plants the seed so that when these people do see the light, that they come back because the way that you treated them. You kind of think of it even in terms of being like a police officer. Just because I'm taking you to jail doesn't mean that I hate you. I'm speaking the truth to you. You've committed a crime. I'm taking away your freedom. I'm going to take you to jail. Doesn't mean I hate you. Doesn't mean we can't be friends in 6 months. I've seen so many guys be reformed. You see them again and they're like, hey man, I got my life together. I'm back on track. And they're cussing you out 6 months earlier, it's just give respect. And I know sometimes I'm not the best. I can give lots of good advice. I can't always follow it. But if you do it in respect and love, you speak the truth, you don't hide from it. And if you're good, somebody gets mad and walks off, pat them on the back and say, I'll be here for you when you change your mind. I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah. Pat them on the back. Tell them I'll be here. I like that, man.
The word says if we do all these things what we talk about but do not love, we are as a tinkling brass cymbal. Love is so important. I heard a quote one time that said, it will be easier for us three dudes to conquer the entire world than it would be for one of us to love our neighbor like we're supposed to. Now let that sink in for a minute.
That right there sticks, brother. That's got weight to it.
It's hard, man.
It's extremely hard, especially in the emotion of the moment. Again, I'm subject to flash emotions myself, but the key is to set the environment for them to return. For instance, when we wrong people and they forgive us and allow us back into their life, we have to do that with people who believe crazy stuff like abortion and transsexual stuff. We can still love them. We were setting the tone for them to return once they, there's so many stories. There's even a Navy SEAL that they interviewed on, what's the podcast we listen to, Eric, that we love? Former CIA guy interviews everybody.
Sean Ryan.
Sean Ryan.
Yeah,
he interviewed. Just see the one where he interviewed the Navy SEAL. This guy was so smart. I mean, he was beyond smart. He went through a period where he was dressing like a woman, had completely lost his mind. And again, he's gone full circle. He's come back around and he's home. And I think that's what all we can do is set the environment for them to return home.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you said that, Mike. And dudes, if you're listening to this out there, you're looking at three guys who have failed at lots of things and have fallen in many categories of our lives throughout our lives, but that's okay. We got to stand up. And like you said, respectfully, stand up for the truth. Don't go crazy and scream at people and yell at people, but stand up, speak the truth, pat them on the back if they disagree with you, but they'll come back around, Mike. So I hope we've given something on this stuff tonight for some dudes who will be able to stand up and don't be afraid to talk about stuff. Again, I swear that's why we're in this mess when it comes to a variety of subjects. We don't talk about things.
I think it's so important, and you've talked about it before too, Eric. Have a conversation with that person that doesn't believe the same way you do. Maybe they'll listen to your side, you listen to their side, and while they're listening to your side, you're speaking truth. You're speaking truth, but as soon as you, like you said, if you start screaming and hollering, "I'm done. I disagree. I'm done with you," you've lost them and it's gone. So, respectfully, if they will, I think have a conversation and let both sides be heard, and then when you're telling your side, you're telling the truth, and maybe you're planting a seed. You are planting a seed when you speak the truth, and maybe somebody down the line will water that seed, produce fruit in their life, and they'll come back around.
Absolutely. Good point, man. I love that.
Any other points we want to discuss here on voting? And we covered the abortion. Oh, there's one more I did want you to cover, Eric, that you talked to. I can't remember who you talked to, one of the candidates for Polk County, going back to the border and, how they are spreading immigrants all over the country and illegals and what's happening kind of behind the scenes in Polk County that no one really even knew about.
Well, again, I don't know many details, but the answer I got from one of the candidates was, I said, well, I'm afraid this is going to come, and me and Mike have talked about the gym, this is going to come home to roost, so to speak. Some of the stuff we're seeing on TV and it's going to happen here. And this candidate said, it is. It already is. And things are so jammed up with the federal system right now that these folks, they can't hold them forever, And so apparently it's going on here in Polk County some. And I didn't know what to think about that. Again, there wasn't specifics given, but.
Well, I'll give you an example of how it can happen and how it can affect and completely change the makeup of a community. In Pasadena, they're under the Obama administration. For the longest, let me rephrase that. Before Obama, when you were on the housing list for HUD housing and whatnot, you had to be a resident of Pasadena. So you're serving the citizens in your community there, and you had to be a resident of Pasadena. Well, Houston had a waiting list that was a bazillion miles long. And under Obama, they changed the law so that to eliminate the backlog in Houston, to go to where places there's not a backlog, kind of like what you're talking about with the feds and the immigration. There's backlogs. So they're going to start finding where there's not backlogs. And they opened it up to allow anyone in Harris County to get HUD housing, and our community literally changed. It was literally overnight. We had people moving from Houston who did not have the same values of the people who lived there. That you had communities, crime shot through the roof. And we basically had, the roughest parts of Houston come take up residence in our city. And that one policy change literally changed the community overnight. So you can see how that would apply in this arena of immigration. That, well, Polk County's got some space, or, they're not that populated. They could use some people, or whatever it is, they just like that, it changes.
Didn't that happen wasn't it Wisconsin, Mike? Or was it Illinois? Or there was a small town somewhere, I can't remember where, I think it was Wisconsin, that the population's grown by 10% in a month or something?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just completely overwhelmed every city service. Crime is skyrocketed. That sounds like I'm saying immigrants are criminals. That is not what I'm saying. And there is absolutely, America is a nation of immigrants. There is a system in place. We are not following the system. We're encouraging the opposite. We can get into why it's another podcast. We're already running long, but it's changing our nation dramatically. And you see what just happened in Athens, Georgia. It makes me my heart absolutely breaks. That crushed me when I read it. And the more I learn about it, the more mad I get. Absolutely senseless.
But let's speak clear, though, on this. We're not saying they're criminals, but I dealt with a lot of illegal immigrants in where I worked. A lot of the ones that are coming over, Eric and Chris, they cannot even read and write their own language. Like when they go to sign their name, they just put a mark. So your country gets better when you have a controlled system that takes the best, the brightest, and in between. But it's just reality. Your country is not going to get better whenever they can't even read and write in their own language. That's just the facts. It's not going to be a good result. And you can find historical, you can find proof of it all over this world. And it just is what it is. These aren't the best and brightest from the world coming over. A large majority of them are not. A large majority of them. And Venezuela, I think, there's several countries that are releasing their criminals to immigrate to us so that they can reduce their prison size. I mean, yeah, that's going to work out great. But yeah, we could go on and on. But again, to close the point, that's why voting matters, man.
You got to vote.
I want to thank you guys for sharing your heart today on this topic. You guys are more the political nerds than I am.
We're old, Chris. We're old.
If you don't take anything, if you don't take anything away, if you only take a few things away, remember that to turn away from evil, or that all that is required for evil to prevail is for good men to do nothing. And get out, vote, research your candidates, one election at a time. You can be the part that changes your county, your city, and our nation. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you for our great nation, Father, and I humbly repent for the sins of our nation, Father. Your word says that if we repent and turn away from our wickedness, that you will heal our land, Father. Please hear our cry on this, Father. Give the strength to these men, Father, and women, if they're listening, Father, to stand up for what is right, Father. Give them the strength to get out, to research these candidates, to vote, and give them the strength to keep fighting the good fight. We love you and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
It's Life After Sunday, a podcast by dudes, for dudes, where faith meets the real world. For Eric Duval and Mike Norman, I'm Chris Boren. Let's go.